All right, today we're diving into something really fascinating, a framework that gets to the very core of what makes you, you. We're talking about the inner workings of your mind, your emotions, and your own personal vitality.
So let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your inner world is just chaos? You've got thoughts racing over here, emotions bubbling up over there, memories popping in, all pulling you in different directions. It can feel like you're just caught in the middle of a storm, right?
But what if that's not the whole story? What if all those things, your thoughts, your feelings, even your past, aren't separate forces at all? What if they're all just expressions of one single manageable energy, an energy that you can actually learn to work with?
And that is exactly what we're digging into today. This explainer is based on the research of Sachin Karnik, and we're going to break down something called the Temde framework. It's a really cool model that takes all those messy, complicated pieces of our inner world and shows how they're actually part of one single integrated system.
So Temde, it's an acronym, right? It stands for T for thoughts, E for emotions, M for memory, D for desires, and then the final E, which is kind of the foundation of it all, personal core energy. So let's go through this piece by piece and see how this blueprint of our inner world really works.
Okay, first up, T for thoughts. Now, we all think we know what thoughts are, right? They're just the little voice in our head. But this framework asks us to look at them differently, not just as ideas, but as actual, tangible forms of energy.
And this is a really big idea, so let's unpack it. The framework says that every single thought is basically an energetic event. It's not just describing your reality, it's actively shaping it. I mean, just think about the difference between a really clear, focused thought versus a bunch of scattered, anxious ones. The source material says that difference isn't just in the words, it's in the energy itself, the clarity, the coherence. A good, strong thought pattern organizes your energy, while a messy one just throws it all over the place.
So, if our thoughts are energy, the big question is, how do we direct that energy? Well, the tool for that is something called metacognition. It literally just means thinking about thinking. It's that amazing human ability to step back, look at our own thought patterns and ask, hey, is this actually helping me, or is this just some old negative tape playing on a loop? Metacognition is like the control panel. When we use it, we can start to consciously shift our thinking. And this isn't just some mental trick. The research actually links this directly to neuroplasticity. By choosing better, more coherent thoughts, you can literally start to rewire your brain, making those positive pathways your new default setting. How cool is that?
All right, let's move on to the E for emotions. So if thoughts are the energy that we can direct, then you can think of emotions as the feedback system. They're like these incredibly powerful signals telling you what's going on inside.
Now, the Temde model really pushes us to stop labeling our emotions as good or bad. Instead, we should see them as pure information, just energetic data. Anger might be a signal that one of your boundaries has been crossed. Sadness could be a signal of loss. Joy, that's a signal that you're in alignment. And these signals aren't just feelings, they have real physical effects. The source talks about how they activate the limbic system, create a rush of hormones. This isn't just a side effect, it's the very way that emotional energy moves through our bodies.
Okay, so to get really good at reading this emotional data, we need a skill called emotional granularity. This is all about getting more specific. Instead of just saying, I feel bad, can you actually figure out if you're feeling disappointed, or maybe frustrated, or lonely? Because each of those carries a totally different energetic signature. The more specific you can be, the better you understand the signal you're getting. And that's the first step towards what the source calls emotional alchemy, where you're not trying to crush or ignore difficult emotions, but you're actually understanding their message and transforming that energy into something useful, like compassion or a new insight.
Okay, moving on to M for memory. We usually think of our memories as this kind of dusty old library in our heads, right? Like a static archive we just pull files from. But this framework has a radically different and honestly a much more exciting view.
The key here is that memory is seen as dynamic and living. Your memories aren't just sitting there collecting dust, no way. They are active, energetic patterns that are influencing you right now, in this very moment. A memory that has a really strong negative charge can be this constant drain on your energy, shaping how you see the world today, often without you even realizing it. Our entire personality, really, is built on these energetic patterns from the past.
And this leads to something absolutely profound. If memories are just energetic patterns, can we change that energy? And the answer, amazingly, is yes, through a process called memory reconsolidation. Get this. Whenever you recall a memory, for a very brief period, it becomes unstable, malleable, before it gets stored again. And in that little window, you can actually modify its emotional and energetic charge. This means the past isn't set in stone like we thought. We can actually go back and neutralize those disruptive imprints and repattern our memories. We can turn them from a burden into a source of wisdom and healing.
So that brings us to D for desires. So we've got thoughts that direct, emotions that inform, and memories that shape. Well, desires are what get us moving. They are the engine of our personal energy. They're what push us to actually do things in the world.
Yeah, directional vector. I love that description. Desire literally points our energy toward a goal. It's the bridge between our inner world and our outer actions. But here's the thing. Not all desires are created equal. The framework makes a distinction between, say, basic survival drives and those higher aspirations that are really aligned with who we want to be. And when you have conflicting desires, well, it's like having two engines on a car trying to pull it in opposite directions. It's just a huge waste of energy, and it always leads to frustration.
And again, this isn't just abstract philosophy. It is totally grounded in our biology. We're talking about our dopaminergic circuits. Those are the neural pathways that use dopamine to create that feeling of motivation, that anticipation of a reward that drives us forward. The TMDI framework suggests we can consciously partner with this system. By refining our desires, by aligning them with a clear, authentic purpose, we create this powerful, focused current of energy. The source calls this the sublimation of desire, basically turning that raw motivational energy into fuel for a life with purpose, instead of letting it be a source of scattered, unfocused dissatisfaction.
Okay, so we've covered thoughts, emotions, memories, and desires. But what's the one thing they all have in common? What are they all made of? This brings us to the final E, and it's the foundation of this entire system: personal core energy. So, personal core energy, think of it as the fundamental raw material. It's the source code. It's like a block of pure, unformed clay. And that clay can be molded into a thought, or an emotion, or a memory, or desire, but underneath all of those different shapes and forms, it's all the same essential stuff. This idea pulls from fields like bioenergetics, which often describe this as our fundamental life force.
And this core energy has two key dimensions. First, there's the quantitative dimension. That's pretty simple. It's just how much energy you have, your stamina, your vitality. Then there's the quality dimension. This is all about the quality of that energy. Is it coherent and flowing, or is it chaotic and stuck? See, you can have a ton of energy, but if it's low quality, chaotic energy, it's not going to do you much good. The whole point of practices like meditation or breathwork, when you look at them through this framework, is to both increase the amount of your energy and, just as importantly, to refine its quality.
And this right here is really the ultimate takeaway. This is the big aha moment of the Temde framework. All of these forces inside us that feel so separate and sometimes feel like they're at war with each other, they're not. At their very root, they are all unified. They're simply your one singular personal core energy just being expressed in different ways. A thought is just core energy shaped into a mental pattern. An emotion is core energy felt as a physical sensation. It is all one big, dynamic, interconnected system.
You see, when you really grasp this, it completely shifts your perspective. You go from being a passive victim of your moods and thoughts to being the active manager of your own core energy. So the final question isn't just a fun thought experiment, it's deeply practical and empowering. If you know that you can influence the structure of your thoughts, listen to the signals of your emotions, reshape the charge of your memories, and align your desires, then what are you going to build with that energy? What kind of reality are you going to create for yourself?
So that's our deep dive into the TEMD framework. It's a pretty powerful way to look at our inner world, isn't it? If this has sparked your curiosity and you want to learn more, the contact information for the researcher Sachin Karnik is right there in the description box below. Thanks so much for joining me on this exploration.